the one, the only, the leader of the Priority Academy, Graham Nichols. We want you to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Men's Radio Station. But also, don't forget, there's Women's Radio Station as well. And take a moment to go to your YouTube channel, hit the like button, and please subscribe. It really does help us. Thank you so much. We would really appreciate your support because we love doing these radio shows. Graham, how are you?
I am awesome, Cuddy, and thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. And I realise you've introduced yourself, but I'm going to introduce you anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend, that is Cuddy Cudworth.
Oh, you did it the right way.
I
You
did.
did it
I
the
was
right
thinking
way.
about it. I nearly went the wrong way, but I thought about it and I got it there in the end. So listen, bud, you came, well, actually, we came up with the idea for the title of this show in the show 2 weeks ago, but it's
We
kind of
did.
your title. So introduce what we're talking about today.
Right. So it's the meaning of life. Is your label your superpower? We are in, maybe this is another pandemic that's going on, is that everybody is at this moment in time, it seems to me, I hope this is not a blanket statement. Graham, you can let me know. People are wanting a label so they fit in, so they have a reason for why they are doing certain things. And those labels that are often self-diagnosed, not actually diagnosed, come from just repeating that, oh, I'm this, or I've got ADHD, or I'm on the spectrum because I don't focus on these problems. Oh, I want to get diagnosed because I just don't feel right. And a lot of the times, these labels stop us moving forward. They stop us moving forward, or does the label you're looking for actually become your superpower? And I want to use one person as an example, Graham. Tom Stoltman, the world's strongest man, autism, and he uses autism as his superpower. Now, when I've been working with clients, I've had some clients who have self-diagnosed themselves, and I'm like, okay, even if you have what you think, what would be the benefits of having that? Well, I'd be able to do this, this, and this. Boom. Now it's your superpower. It's not the reason, because a lot of times in conversation, oh, I can't do that because I have anxiety, or I can't do that because I'm severely depressed. Well, actually, you probably, if you started doing that, the anxiety and the depression might go away. So the labels that we are creating, and people think it would suggest that some people, or a lot of people, are looking for a label so that they can carry on being stuck and not moving forward. Would you agree or disagree to that sentiment and statement, Graham?
I think straight away I would agree with that statement and that sentiment. And I think it's really important that we define what a label is, because people, you're absolutely right. They use labels left, right, and center without actually defining what they are. And a label is something that we attach to ourselves, but more than that, we attach it to who we are as a human being, who we are
Yes.
as a person. So, as coaches, both of us work with the identity of people. We work with their core identity, who they are at their core. And a label can be anything that is part of your core identity. So labels can absolutely be positive things. So if I was to label myself as a husband, I am a husband. That's part of my identity. It's part of who I am. I'm a father. I'm a coach, but I'm also caring. I'm also loving. I'm also loads of other things. They are all positive labels. And because I attach them to who I am as a human being,
Yeah.
my whole system is driven to be that way. If we attach, and I'm going to use the term negative loosely here, but if we attach a negative label to ourselves, so some people might say, I am a smoker. When I say I am something, that attaches to our identity. That is a label that attaches to who we are. And because one of our biggest driving forces is to become and to follow who we believe ourselves to be, if I say I am a smoker, or I am lazy, or I am anxious, or I am depressed, or I am stressed, that's exactly what our entire system is going to drive ourselves to be. So when we attach that label to ourselves, we basically become that thing, whether we like it or not. But then, of course, as you've rightly said, it can be used as a story, a reason why we can't do something, an
Correct.
excuse why something won't come off for us, that it won't happen for us, that sort of thing. But we can flip it around, and the example you gave there of the strongman is the perfect thing. There are people out there, there are top people out, top business people out there, people who make millions, if not billions of dollars a year, who are dyslexic. Now, they could use dyslexia, I am dyslexic, as an excuse, or they can say, I'm dyslexic, so I have to work 10 times harder to be successful.
Yes.
And therefore, they turn that, instead of it being a negative that's dragging them away and stopping them from becoming what they want to be, do what they want to do, they're using it as their superpower to go, I am this, that means I've got to do this to become more successful, and that's what I'm going to do. And that's how you turn that label into a superpower. And we label ourselves for everything, but we don't just label ourselves for everything. We then have sub-labels of everything, don't we? So if we were to use anxiety as an example, there's the label of anxiety, but under that there's social anxiety, and there's generalized anxiety disorder.
Yes.
And then there's this anxiety, and there's that anxiety, and we create these sub-labels. So we stick a label on the top of our head that says anxiety, and then we stick another one there that says we've got social anxiety, and then we've got generalized anxiety, and then and we stick these labels all over us, and we then become unconsciously those things, because that's what we're saying we are. That's absolutely what we're saying we are. And those labels and sub-labels are incredibly powerful in our lives, but they're powerful as well in a positive sense if we choose to use them that way, aren't they? I've realised I've rattled on for a little while there.
No, I like it when you rattle. No, because there's an awful lot of times that I rattle on. So it's nice when you really, because I always think you're probably more experienced in these things anyway. But it's the labels, and like when I think people are misinterpreting things about them because we struggle with comparison, a major thing. Oh, well, this person can do everything and I can't do this thing. We start then creating a meaning. Oh, well, is there something wrong with me why I can't do what that person does? Instead of looking at the positive way of looking at it, I would like to be able to do that. Let me go and learn how to do it that way. So, oh, no, I just can't do that. So then you start creating a meaning, and your little monkey mind will pop up and say, oh, well, what if you've got ADHD, or what if you've got severe depression? And these thoughts are popping in. That's that monkey mind. And you start believing the hype. You start believing the negative hype because we thought it must be real. And it's not. But there is so many people because, I think, and this is why I always have this conversation. I know we've done it before about there is that feelings. Oh, well, tell me why you would feel that way. People don't understand feelings. And they're taking feelings as truth and fact. So, I feel a little bit lost today doesn't mean to say that you are lost. Or I feel like I can't focus. If you are to say, I feel like I can't focus today, then your little monkey mind says, it's probably because you got ADHD. What? No, I just can't focus today. Well, that's because you got ADHD. You're self-diagnosing. Those conversations with ourselves become real. Because we start, is it called spelling? It's called spelling, isn't it? The I am, like, have you never heard that? It's the spelling. Yeah. If you keep repeating, I am an idiot, you will
put
start
a spell on yourself.
Absolutely. You'll start spelling and becoming what we are, which is actually what I've been doing a lot recently with my clients. Is a lot of people have been coming and saying, I just can't do this and I can't do this. And I always ask, okay, why can't you do that? Well, because I've not been doing it before. Okay, so you've just not done it before. It doesn't mean to say you can't do it. I never thought, okay. Try doing this, do it for 2 weeks, and see how things change. Right, okay, fine. And they've started doing it. They've got back to me in 2 weeks' time. Like, oh my God, I can do these things. Absolutely. We just don't know what we can and can't do. And everyone is missing the unfortunate part of most things that happen to us are coming from a place of fear and insecurity and not being sure of who we are. And something so small, once you understand how to get past that, as we do, obviously, and all the coaches that you've worked with, that once the people start understanding that, then they're like, oh, right, so we can Absolutely. It's while you keep having these conversations with yourself, with your monkey mind, are driven by fear. And that's what it is. And once you learn how to manage that, a lot of the things that we think we have, the labels that we have, probably are not true. They don't exist, and you don't need them. Feelings can often be a misinterpreted sign of, oh, I just don't feel right today, or I don't feel. Not a problem. There is those days, but once you've done it for 4 or 5 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, oh, still don't feel right. Well, what's wrong with me? The second you've asked that question of what's wrong with me, your monkey mind jumps in and says, well, it's because of this, this, and this. And you're having this conversation with yourself, not even diagnosed, not even going to go and speak to somebody. I'm not always, and I'm not a medical professional or anything like that, and I always say that, but I'm not a fan of a label anyway. And I've had clients who thought they had OCD or irrational thoughts, intrusive thoughts. Oh, well, there must be something wrong with me. No, actually, there's not. And I know we're going to have that. I know that's going to be a show in the future about intrusive thoughts, because we are going to talk on that. Is like, no, you just have to understand that thoughts, yes, they do come in. They're not as real as we would like them to be, unless we want to make them real, which you can do negatively or positively. But because the brain is wired up for negative, because it's got to remember pain, because pain could cause it death, and your brain has to remember. I feel like a broken record sometimes, because that is literally what I tell people all the time. All right, okay, so I'm not. Yeah, nope. You don't. Your brain's not wired to remember ice cream. Remember that, everybody. You're not wired to remember the time you had ice cream and you enjoyed the beach, because it didn't cause you any harm. Unless you got stung by a jellyfish, you would remember the time you went to the beach. However, every time you've had something that caused you pain, you will remember that, which is why these things keep coming back from our past and they keep haunting us. And once you've had that conversation, if you're listening to your monkey mind more than your professional helper, provided, the doctor or somebody else who you want to work with, don't believe the hype unless it's a really good hype that would get you up in the morning to be awesome. That's when you start believing the hype. True or false, Graham?
Yeah, absolutely true. And I think there's a couple of things that I want to pick up on there, because I'm always keen that we add as much value in this show as possible.
Oh, absolutely.
So I want to offer people a thought on how to change their feeling patterns. So you were talking there about feeling, oh, I feel a bit off today, or I feel this today, I feel that today, I feel that today. And people do that all the time. I do it sometimes as well.
Yeah.
But here's what I've learned. If I change the word feel to think, then I can change how I feel about it. So I feel a bit off today, or I think a bit off today. Well, if I feel a bit off, what can I really do about it? But if I think a bit off, well, I can think differently then. If I feel a bit down today, okay, that's tough. But if I think a bit down today, well, then I can think differently today. So if you change that one word, every time you say to yourself, you're stifling a yawn already, aren't you?
I'm not stifling a yawn. I'm thinking, no, I'm not. I had a nap before I came on, to be honest with you. I'm smiling because I'm like, I need to remember that. I'm going to use that more with my clients. I'm going to use that more with my clients. I'm thinking.
Yeah. Every time you say, I feel, and then follow it up with something negative, just change the feel to think. That one word shift, and it will change everything about what you're doing in that moment and how you're feeling in that moment. If you say, I feel happy today, I feel over the moon today, I feel excited, then leave it exactly where it is, because it will feel wonderful. Anything negative, I feel, and then anything negative, just change it to think. I think this today. Okay, well, I best think differently then, because we can control what we think. And when we control what we think, we control how we feel. It's as simple as that.
Oh, there it is. That might be my new tagline. Because I'm a big believer in change your thoughts, change your life.
Absolutely. When we can change what we think, we can change how we feel. Oh, I'm going to steal that from me, from you, from me.
I can see it's going to be on the next newsletter, isn't it? I can tell it's going to be on the next newsletter.
It is, absolutely.
Right, so let's put it out to a little shout out for anyone that is tuned into the show right now. If you've got any questions, you want to ask any questions live, and we can give you some answers overcoming anything that we've been discussing in these live shows every couple of weeks. Now is the time. You can write in your questions via StreamYard or via whatever service that you are watching this on. We are live on Facebook. We are live on Twitter, Instagram. I believe Instagram as well. Is that right?
I don't know about Instagram. I know we're live on YouTube.
Yeah, live on YouTube as the radio station. And as we said earlier, absolutely like and subscribe. There's going to be more shows coming up with myself and Graham, or Graham and I. And you are more than welcome to tune in. I also have another radio show that's going to be every 2 weeks, which is going to be next week. We have some fabulous guests, and we get guests involved, and we talk about their stories, and that's the Monkey Mind Show. So get involved in that. But you are more than welcome to write any comments, questions that you would like, just to let us know that you are live on the show as well. So when it comes to labels, Graham, which is some of the most unusual labels you've been aware of?
Unusual ones. I think about unusual ones. The ones that come up more often than not, I think, are the ones that kind of spread negativity. So I think that one of the biggest labels I hear is I am stressed. I think I am anxious, something along those lines. I was reading the other day that anxiety has taken over as the number one mental health condition, has overtaken depression, because for years and years depression was the number one, or the high. I say number one, that makes it sound really good. But it's
the best mental health disorder.
Yeah, it's the biggest mental health issue. It's overtaking depression. So I am anxious, or I suffer with anxiety, or something like I have anxiety. That kind of label kind of spreads things like I am lazy as well. Just people go, oh, I'm just lazy, and that's it. They just, therefore that's their excuse and reason not to do anything. But as I like to do on this show, I like to throw a question up in the air so that you can knock it out of the park. So are you ready? Prepare yourself.
I'm ready.
You're ready. Are all negative labels to do with our belief system around not being good enough or enough in some way?
Are all our negative labels? I would say that if we were to blanket spread them, the original seed of growth, the seed that we plant and it grows many trees, I would say is a feeling of not enough. Because the three headings of, I always say that it's, your anxiety will come from a place of not good enough, not worthy, or not lovable.
Yeah, not good enough,
and
not
original
lovable enough, not
right
worthy
at the bottom
enough. Yeah, absolutely.
Is good enough. And you're reaffirming that when you start self-diagnosing, I have ADHD. Well, why do you have ADHD? Well, because I can't focus on things for longer than 30 minutes. Most people can't focus on things for 30. The actual official span of attention is 37 minutes. They did a science that the average amount of time anybody can spend on one project is 37 minutes. It's either 32 or 37 minutes, which is why they do the TV programs in America as 37-minute episodes with adverts all the way through. Because that's what they found out at the time. So most people can't focus on anything for longer than 35 minutes. But again, the second you've not done that 3 times, it's always the power of 3. It's always the power of 3. If you reaffirm, I'm useless, I'm useless, I'm useless, 3 times, you're going to start believing the hype. And that's the negative monkey mind. And this is what I did, Graham. I know we've talked about it many times, is the amount of things that I used to say to myself all the way up in here. I wouldn't talk to my family like that. I wouldn't talk to my friends like that. So why do we find that we can do it to ourselves? Why is that acceptable and allowed? Because it is tough. And that monkey mind is a vicious little bastard. I'll be honest. It genuinely is. That's why I'm so passionate about monkey mind relaxation. But this massive need to self-diagnose again, I always ask people, and I've asked clients, why do you feel the need to want to be self-diagnosed? Oh, well, because that would make me feel like there's a reason. Well, does it though? What will it, if you get diagnosed as being on some, being diagnosed on the spectrum? Bearing in mind the spectrum goes from nothing to full on. So nothing all the way down here, you're diagnosed as the mildest form of autism possible. Oh, well, I've got autism then. No, you haven't. You're just on the spectrum. I've probably got a mild autism, because that's the spectrum. There's not a spectrum of you don't have to you do have. There's literally a spectrum, and you're right on the other end. And that's what you. And this, look, I do this a lot with. I'll talk about, especially when it's the reason I'm stuttering is because this is a tricky conversation to have, because I don't want to come from a place of experience on this one. But I know your monkey mind is pretty lethal when you are a male going through what I went through 10 years ago. So I know that your monkey mind, when you are possibly, for any ladies that are listening, going through the menopause, will absolutely be lethal. And I think one of the biggest things that I've had to experience from people in my life, a lot of ladies sometimes think that they're getting early onset dementia because they're getting the brain fog, they're getting the forgetfulness, and they're not understanding, but that's part of the change in the hormones. But you start repeating 3-4 times, oh, I think I've got early onset dementia, you're going to start believing that. And I'm like, that's just your monkey. And yes, it's the monkey mind's not the answer for everything, as my wife tells me on a daily basis. However, it's your emotions.
However, it really
it's your emotions that we're creating by thinking. And sometimes, do you know the amount of times I've actually worked with ladies, and we go through certain things, and we have those chats, and we're like, all right, let's try this, and they'll go through. Oh, my husband's been saying that for ages, or my sister's been saying that for ages. But you don't want to hear it from your family member. You have to go to that professional for it. All right, so it is that. It is what my sister might have been saying and stuff, because that's the worry and the fear that is created by that mystical little monkey mind, the emotions that we have, that pops up in people's lives and stuff like that. So the labels, I'm not 100% sure if labels are the best thing. And why do people feel the need or think the need that they need a label?
The truth is, beyond that, is what I said right at the start, is we do have positive labels. So me calling myself a husband, you calling yourself a coach, they are positive labels. We're always going to have labels, whether you call them a label or whether you call them an identity or something like that, doesn't really matter. We're always going to have them. It's the negative labels that we then, as you rightly say, self-diagnose and attach to ourselves.
Yeah.
And even if they are diagnosed properly and we still attach them to ourselves, we then can still use them as an excuse to not do stuff. And I'll hold my own hands up, and I've talked about my story on this show before. When I was labeled, when I was diagnosed with stress, anxiety, and depression all at the same time, that gave me an excuse to not do stuff. It gave me an excuse to feel crappy all the time. It gave me an excuse to lay on the sofa and watch rubbish on telly instead of actually getting my backside in gear and going and doing stuff. It gave me that excuse. And particularly because a GP has said that's what it is. Well, then I've got the ultimate excuse then, haven't I?
Yeah, I've got a reason now.
I've got a reason, so therefore I can do that. But I needed to kick my ass in gear and get off the sofa to realise that the only one that can strip that label off me is me. I can't go back to a doctor and they'll go, yes, you're stress-free now, you can take that label off. They're not going to do that. I've got to rip that off myself and throw it in the bin, set fire to the bin, chuck the ashes in another bin, and probably set fire to it again. But that's the label I've got to take away from myself. And one of the most hurtful things I think I ever did to myself, and you mentioned it a few moments ago when you were talking about, you said, what's happening to me? Because when people ask that type of question, our brains, that monkey mind you've been talking about, it has to answer it. Our brains are set up so they have to answer any question that you ask it. Even if you ask it the most impossible question, it will still spend time trying to search for an answer. And if it can't find an answer, it probably will even lie to you.
Yep.
But if you ask it a question in a negative connotation, it will give you a negative connotation answer. What is happening to me? Well, you've got ADHD, or you're stressed, or you've got anxiety, or whatever. It will give you the answer. Why does this always happen to me? Because you're useless and you deserve it. And yes, that one comes from personal experience. That was my favorite question back in those days. Why does this always happen to me? Because I'm asking the question in a negative way, I'm getting a negative answer. And that's exactly what I did. What's the answer to that? Ask a question in a positive way. How can I stop this happening to me? How can I feel a little bit better every day and stop this happening to me? I've got a better question and my brain is going to give me a better answer. So instead of asking what's wrong with me, how do I feel better every day? How can I start to feel a little bit? How can I learn to start to feel little bit better every day? And all of a sudden, you don't get a label from it. That, what's wrong with me provides a label, slaps it straight on your forehead, and that's you. How can I learn to start feeling a little bit better every day? Oh, well, you could read a book, or you could listen to an audio program, or you could listen to a podcast, or you could take an online course, or you could go to a seminar or a webinar, or, the list of stuff is endless if you just and when you just ask the right question. Because when you ask the right question, you don't label yourself. When you ask a poor question, you label yourself. And that label will always, in my humble opinion and through my years of experience, will always be related somewhere to not feeling enough in some way, or not believing we're enough in some way. Like you said, Cuddy, whether it's I'm not enough in general, I'm not smart enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not deserving enough, I'm not kind enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not this enough, that enough, or the other enough. Anything like that will provide you with a negative label when you ask the question that's negative. And that's as simple as that. That's where the labels come from. And once they're stuck, my God, are they tough to take off and throw away.
Yeah.
I saw you scribbling stuff there. So what
I
are you scribbling?
did, because I've had an epiphany.
Oh, hold the phone.
Now, an epiphany. Now, this might be.
Hang on, you need.
No, because I think we're getting more and more passionate about anxiety. I am, because it triggers me on a daily basis. Not that I have anxiety, but when I hear people say, "Oh, I've got this anxiety, I've got this anxiety, I've got this anxiety," and what if it was as easy as simple as knowing what we do, Graham? A doctor saying, "Oh, it sounds like you have anxiety. What you have is a fear of not being good enough." And that's easily workable. Speak to these people. Would that be a doctor? We talk about this all the time, right? A doctor has 6 minutes to diagnose. They diagnose, then they have to prescribe. I know that they're trying really hard to not prescribe anymore. But you walk in, I'm just anxiety, I've got problems at work, I've got all this. Would it not be easier? Oh, it sounds like you've got a fear of not being good enough. I think that's something we can work on. How would that be as a label? Would that de-escalate the fear monkey? Would that de-escalate the anxious monkey to, oh, it's just a fear of, oh, well, where's that come from? Oh, we can work on that. 4 sessions, boom, you're living your best life. How would people feel walking and leaving out of the doctors if it was like, oh, I don't actually have social anxiety. So I've got social anxiety, so I can't go into social situations anymore because I'm on these tablets because I can't cope with it. Oh, I just have a fear of not being good enough in certain situations. Oh, we can work on that. How would that resolve the anxiety crisis?
If it was said in those terms and in that way, I think you'd be on to a winner. My fear would be somebody saying, "Oh, well, it sounds like you're not good enough," or "It sounds like you think you're not good enough." Oh, well, I think I'm not good enough, therefore I'm not, and therefore that just blows everything out of all proportions. It would require the correct wording, but it could definitely improve the situation. Would you get a doctor, a general practitioner to do that? Well, I'm not a medical professional, so I can't really offer a thought. The only thought I can offer is that in 2019, there were reportedly 800 million people around the world who suffer with mental health.
Right.
By the time 2020 is now gone with COVID and now the Ukraine war and the cost of living crisis, that number has got to be pushing 1 billion people. Correct. Who have some form of mental health issue. If that isn't the biggest pandemic the world has ever seen, I don't know Correct. What is. So it really is about time somebody did something about it. Sorry, I'm getting on my soapbox now because this really,
it's true. It's something we should be dealing with.
Like you said about, becoming more passionate and that about anxiety. It's the whole thing for me. It really does wind me up that we can have these little adverts, going. I don't know what it's like around the world, but in the UK here, we get the adverts about, men should talk more. And it goes on for a few weeks and then it just dissipates and it's not a big thing anymore. Or there's a couple of documentaries and, a couple of famous people get involved and then it all disappears off again. And yet something like COVID, bad as it's been, there's not 1 billion people affected on a daily basis. And yet we still hear about it today.
Very true, Graham.
So
and it's the labels. I'm telling you, the labels.
Yeah, well, that's it. Mental health in itself, just those two words, mental health has become a label. Because the moment you say mental health to somebody, they think negatively. Now, you can have good mental health. I would suggest that you and I, Cuddy, have pretty good mental health. We've had to work at it over time because there were times when we had poor mental health.
I didn't know that that's what mental health was. That's the thing is, looking back now, I didn't know I was in a bad mental health state. I don't even, because it was 10 years ago, I don't even think mental health was a thing then. I thought depression was something that everybody else had, and it was serious, and you would end up in the nut house, is the label I would have created it, which is not a nice term to say, but that's what I thought, and that's why I was scared of depression. Yeah. Now I know that depression happens just because you're thinking of lack and something that you don't have, something in the past, and we're not taught how to control those thoughts and understand where we can think. Actually, it's really, I hate to say it, I'm not, but it's a lot easier it's so much easier with practice. It's so much easier, and it just takes practice. For anyone that's listening to this, if you are, you always get those occasional slights. Oh, you don't understand my situation. You don't understand. Well, no, actually, I don't. But I bet you it won't be far away from what my situation was, what your situation was, Graham. We just think that our situation's worse. We over-personalize things, and we think, no, my problems are much worse than yours. That's what elevates that label. Again, it elevates it and makes it even worse and makes us dig a deeper hole, thinking we can't get out of that hole. And that's why there's these great champion stories of people, and we are talking about it more, the mental health and stuff like that. But depression is not a dirty word, but it can be changed so much quicker and easier than people like to think. Right. There was a couple of things I've been writing stuff down. So you were talking about negative words that become labels. And one that bothers me is toxic positivity. Exactly. Have you never heard of toxic positivity, where people are too positive and it's not realistic? No, toxic positivity where you can't be positive all the time. I don't know if I've been called toxic positivity, but I'm genuinely, no, I think we can work around this. But there's always a solution. I genuinely just believe, no, there's always a solution. We just don't know what it is yet, but there'll be a solution. And I remember watching a story, someone who was quite bitter about life. They were like, yeah, toxic positivity is starting to really, you can't be happy all the time. I'm like, no, you can't be happy all the time, but you could have a more positive mindset. Once you're saying, again, it's the other side of the spectrum. You can't be happy all the time. No, You can't be, because your emotions go like a scale electrics. They go around. What goes up must come down. I totally get that. But when I'm on a downward spiral, I can always think, well, at least I know I'm coming into a good positive. So that's, again, being positive, because I know it's going to pass. I know it's going to pass, like the weather and like the clouds and the storms come in, and we get to manage that because we learn how to manage that. And yes, it does take practice and stuff like that. By the way, for anyone that's watching and listening, it's not as hard as you think. But there's some very simple things you can do to be able to manage that and stuff like that. It's not always as easy as, well, go for a walk and start eating right and getting exercise. No, you have to deal with what you think is the problem. And we're in a society these days where we're practicing avoidance more than anything else. And we start building these stories of avoidance coming from a story we're covering of what we're actually scared of, not being good enough. All right, that's what we're doing. And once we peel those layers of the onion away. So there was another thing I wanted to mention about as well, which was one of my clients pretty much told me, oh yeah, I'm like this because I've got, it was such a long word. I'm like, I'm so sorry. What is that? And it was something like SCC PTSD. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. What is that? What? Yeah. Oh, well, my psychotherapist diagnosed me with severe childhood PTSD. I was like, all right, so let's talk about that. Have you resolved it? Or, well, this is why I've got depression, right? Okay, fair enough, not a problem. And because I want to give away value, I'll talk about depression and that woe is me. So do you have those thoughts of woe is me, the whole world's against me? Yeah, all the time, right? Okay. I would suggest that you don't have PTSD, whatever it was. I would suggest that you have a bad low mood of depression. I said, and tell me, I always do this, tell me, does somebody in your family come and give you a bit of attention when you are depressed? And woe is me. They went, what do you mean? I went, does one of your kids or does one of your wife come to you and, oh, you're right, love, touch you and say you're right? And went, oh yeah, all the time. Okay, right, perfect. You've created an association that when you go on that downward spiral, someone comes and gives you love. What? Yeah. So they're not giving you love, they're giving you pity. Do you want pity or do you want love? Oh, I don't want pity. Right. Every time you're in a downward spiral, depression, that touch, that sensation is pity. Would you rather your kids come to you for being that upbeat person, the proud parent, and boom, come and give you love and appreciation? Because kids are really susceptible to it. And they'll watch you go into a slump and somebody will come and give you love. It's not love, it's pity. And I've lifted more depression that way in people. They're like, oh my God, I didn't even realize. Yeah, it's the touch. You think it's love. It's not. It is pity. And they're like, well, I don't want pity. I'm like, absolutely, you do not. Well, what do I need to do? Actually own up and do X, Y, and Z. Right, okay. And you know, I always do things on 5 sessions. It's getting down to like 3 sessions. And it's like, boom, they're on the way. All right, so I just, yeah, perfect. It's just the funny thing that the depression does, because people will give you attention and pity, love at the first time, and you'll repeat that pattern, and you'll not people don't realize why. And I'm like, no, that's the reason why. And then when you look back all the times you were on downward, oh well, I'm having 4 days of depression. Look what happens. Oh yeah, I did get some attention. So would you like to get attention for being the person that goes out and, oh my God. So hopefully that'll help. That, have we just solved the whole depression and anxiety in 2 simple processes?
I think you might have done. I think you might. I had a couple of thoughts that were going through as you were talking there, and then I completely lost my train of thought because I was so interested in what you were saying. So the first bit was about the last bit you were talking about, the CPTTZY.
It was a big word, and I'm like, I've got no idea.
But is that not a prime example of what I was talking about as a label and then a sub-label? So the label is PTSD, and now this is a PTCCPTT, and then there's another one below that, and that's just.
And that's why I have depression, and that's why I have depression.
That gives us that. Right. What was the first thing you wrote down and spoke about?
Toxic
because I'm sure
positivity. It was toxic positivity.
That's exactly what it was.
Positive.
You were talking about like the racetrack, the figure of 8 racetrack, and we also
Yeah, I know that show, baby. Yes.
yeah, it's actually a requirement of our entire nervous system that we can't feel a certain way all the time. We have to have a variety of emotions so that our nervous system functions. One of the biggest fears, and I'm absolutely willing to be proven wrong here, one of the biggest fears I think of pulling yourself out of a poor mental health state, whether it be depression, anxiety, stress, whatever it is, one of the biggest fears is, well, I can't be just happy all the time.
No, you can't.
What if I can't be happy all the time? Then I'll be sad. Well, that's not a fear to have. All of us get sad, all of us get upset or frustrated or stressed or anxious at times. I hold my hands up. Absolutely, I do.
Of
But
course.
like you, I know that once it's gone on that downward curve, I know that something better's coming. And I can absolutely accelerate using the racetrack analogy. I can absolutely accelerate that into something better coming because I know how to and I've learned how to. And the best bit is, both you and I can now teach people how to. We
Yeah.
can use that in our coaching, and we do use that in our coaching to say, okay, so once you've got around that curve and you're on the downward spiral or the downward curve, I don't like to call it a spiral because it kind of then makes you think it's going down and down. So the downward curve, we can then help people to figure out how to get back up on that upward curve very, very quickly and stay up there longer. That's one of the most important things we do. But I really do believe that one of the fears behind why people don't pull themselves out of that negative mental health space is because they don't believe they're good enough to be happy all the time, even though that can never, ever be an achievable goal. And therefore, they will cause themselves pain. They'll look ridiculous. They'll be embarrassed and all that sort of stuff because I can't be happy all the time. So that perception of that pain is much worse than the pain that they're currently in. So I might as well just stay in the pain I'm currently in. Now, I'm more than willing to be proven wrong by that. If somebody wants to comment and throw something out there, by all means do so. However, I've worked with a lot of people. We're talking in the hundreds, possibly over 1,000 people I've worked with. There are patterns to everything.
Yes.
And I'm fairly secure in what I'm saying there for myself, is that that's one of the fears of not getting out of poor mental health or whatever you want to call it. What are your thoughts on what I've just said, Cuddy? I'm interested.
I'm going to learn more about the patterns because I don't do the patterns as much as you do. But I look, I love learning and doing new things and stuff like that. I haven't worked. In fact, talking about learning new things, here we go. This is one of the books I'm on with right now, Psycho-Cybernetics, which is like from the early 60s. That's hypnotism and subconscious work for identity, believe it or not. So I'm really going to get into that. It's the patterns thing I've not worked on as much and mentioned with my clients because it'll be let's breaking the patterns down. I haven't done that as much, but I'm fascinated about the patterns because people allow the yes.
I think you do that without knowing it. When you were just talking about your client who was getting pity from the depression, that's a pattern.
Yes, that's the pattern.
That's the pattern. So you do it without knowing it. So you don't need to learn it. You see the patterns in people and you're doing it. And I don't want to go against a psychotherapist. They're highly trained and I respect the heck out of them. But they've labeled him with this, whatever this CP, XYZ, ABC, CNN, whatever it is. They've labeled.
So what now? That should be the title. I've got a label. So what now?
Exactly. What am I supposed to do with that? What the heck am I supposed to do with that? Here's my thoughts on that client, and I don't know him.
Here's your label.
Yeah.
I've served it up for you.
That's what you got.
Now what?
Yeah. There's your label. Now I'll go off. Go and take a few tablets. Let's not get down that rabbit hole. But if this is something from his past, from his childhood, then again, in my experience, it's not about what happened to him. It's about what he believes about what happened to him. That's where the problem's coming from. It's about what he believes what happened to him, and therefore that's creating an issue unconsciously, and therefore he's going into the pattern of woe is me, get wife or kids or something, give him a hug, feels better about it, blah de blah, pity, all of that sort of stuff. But it all starts from what he believes about what happened, not what happened, what he believes what happened. And to me, a psychotherapist shouldn't be going, here's your label, get on with it. They should be going, okay, let's look at what you believe about what happened in the past.
But why don't they? Because that's the strangest thing. So when it comes to life coaching, because of all the training you do for life coaching, that's literally what we do.
That's literally what we do.
And what we do. So why is it different then? Because, again, not slating psychotherapists in any way. They've got an absolute massive place. I did a radio show with the psycho. No, she was a psycho. Yes, she did. Yes, absolutely. Rona was phenomenal. And I wanted to get her on to ask those questions and stuff like that. And we said, what's the difference between mental health and mental disorders and stuff like that? And she was quite clear. If you're hearing voices and you think those voices are real and you can't decipher, so if you're hearing a voice from the smoke alarm and you're having a conversation with the smoke alarm and those voices, that's a mental disorder. That's not mental health. So if you've not seen that, please tune into that one with Rona. She's got a phenomenal book coming out as well. That was 2-3 weeks ago. Please check that out. However, that's the label. Why are they not? But this is a blanket statement. I can't say that. But sometimes those labels are. And then the psychotherapist has got a little pat on the back. I've just created a new label. Check me out with the new label. You enjoy that. All right. So what's the solution? Because a lot of my clients have come from psychotherapists, and they've also come from counselling. And they said, well, I still feel this, and I still feel this, and I still right. Okay, let's try these things instead. So that's a bit of an eye opener, isn't it? There's your label. Yeah. Thank you very much. You have a lovely day. I've solved your problem. No, you've not. You've just given me another problem on top of what's actually going on. You've not resolved anything.
Yeah. And to be honest, it's why I created a course a few years ago now. Again, I'm not knocking counsellors. I've done my counselling qualifications. I'm a qualified counsellor. I can use counselling. And to a degree, I like the counselling approach. The holding space for people, allowing people to process, asking them a question and then just letting them. I love that approach, and I integrate it into my coaching all of the time. However, standard counseling that came from like the 50s and 60s wasn't solution based. It was about people talking or thinking and just leaving it there. There was no solution based. So 2 or 3 years ago, I created what I called solution based counseling. Because I really believe in the initial model of counseling, the whole thing about allowing people space. I just think that's massive. That can create change up in itself, or at least create the kernel of change in itself. But there needs to be something on the back end of that to help people then find a solution to what that problem is. And that is about looking at their values, looking at their identity, the labels that they use, in other words, and the belief systems that they have, and therefore the emotions and behaviors that are created out of that. That is where counseling, in my humble opinion, should be leading to a solution. Not just about come back to me next week, 100 weeks later, next week, 250 weeks later, next week. And I read about that. There's an amazing book called On Becoming a Person by Carl Rogers.
I was going to call that book, so I remember you talking about that book all the time. Yeah.
1950s, 1960s. Absolutely amazing book. Carl Rogers really was the father of modern counseling. And some of the stuff he talks about is amazing. The unconditional positive regard, the holding space, all of that is brilliant. However, the one bit I couldn't get my head around is he didn't call them sessions, he called them interviews. And he would have people coming back for 200, 250, 300 interviews before they'd get to any sort of solution. And I'm like, what the heck? I don't get why it takes so long. It shouldn't take so long. And about the same time as he was about, there was a guy called Albert Ellis who came up with something called REBT, which was one of the fathers of CBT. And one of his values, he called brevity. In other words, getting people to a point of being in a better place as quickly as possible, helping them as quickly as possible. And I just think when you join the two of those, if you could put Carl Rogers, when and Albert Ellis, when they were alive, into a room and battle it out and come in with the best parts of everything, you would have the ideal helping system. And that's what I certainly try to use when I'm coaching with clients. I know that's how you work. You've already said, it's a 4, maybe 5 session maximum, because we really do have the tools these days to help people in that shorter time, so that they've got the tools going forward so they can help themselves. Because we're not saying that by the end of those 4 or 5 sessions, everything's going to be shiny, rosy, sunny, and wonderful. But what we are saying is you'll be in a much, much better place, 100 times better place. And if anything happens, you'll have the tools to know how to deal with it. That's about balance, isn't it? Where instead of emotions being up and down and up and down and up and down like that, we just want a nice even balance where they're just going like that. So if something does happen, we can cope with it better. And that's what, as a coach, we do. We get them to that nice little balanced place where it's a little bit up and down. And if something does happen and they go down, they can go, I know what's happening. I can correct it. And that, for me, is what we should be doing as coaches. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, no, 100%. It's a phenomenal thing that can happen, and the transformations that people happen in making such a short amount of time. And I think one of the biggest things that I still struggle with, and I'm sure you do, is how much people allow them to suffer because they don't think they're worth the change, or they can't make the change. And when you see people putting themselves under that undue amount of pressure and suffering for such a long time. I did it for 6 months, and 6 months was too much of a loss. And if I say it was like for maybe 6 or 7 months, and some people, I've been doing this for 7 years, and I'm like, well, it's horrible. It is horrible. We come from a place of knowledge and stuff like that. So 100%, those labels can make or break you, and that's why you have an opportunity to, once you've worked out that label is just a label and it doesn't have to stop you moving forward in any way whatsoever, you might see that your life changes, and the meaning of your life can change very quickly. See what I did there?
Yeah, very nice. Meaning of life, the Meaning of Life show. Brilliant. Both you and I are members of the BNI, and you up in sunny Scotland, me down here in sunny England, and we go each week and we get the opportunity to pitch, to talk about our business for 45 to 60 seconds.
Absolutely.
And so my meeting was yesterday morning, and I finished my meeting with these words, my little pitchy thing with these words. Suffering with mental health can be horrific, but it doesn't have to be a life sentence. And I think that's absolutely true. And you're going to steal that for your pitch.
I'm not going to steal it. I'm not going to steal it. I've read it somewhere. I've read it somewhere. I'm not going to Jay Shetty it. I'm not going to Jay Shetty it. That is our term in the Breakfast Club. If somebody copies something or steals something, we say, we've Jay Shettied it. Because that's pretty funny, because Jay Shetty, as brilliant as he is, has copied and absolutely copied Jay Shettied everything. Which is very clever, I have to be honest with you. I'm not going to Jay Shetty, but I've read that somewhere else. Have I read that from one of your courses?
You may have done. I can't remember saying it previously to that. I kind of came up with it yesterday as I got about 6 seconds left on my pitch, and I thought, I need to say something. Yeah, mental health issues are horrific, but they don't have to be a life sentence. And that was it. I sat down. But that's absolutely true. People think I've got depression, or I'm depressed, therefore I'm going to be depressed forever. No, you don't have to be. Or I've got anxiety, so I'm going to have anxiety forever. No, you don't have to have. You may feel anxious at times. We all do. You may feel a bit down at times. We all do. But you don't have to live with it at horrific levels for the rest of your life.
No,
you just don't.
No.
That's the truth of it. You just don't. Even if you consider it severe, and severe depression or what, I hate the term clinical depression. I hate it with a passion, because it just means that why? Well, there's 2 reasons. One, it basically means you've had it for a long time. That's what it basically means. But do you know where the term, the educational bit, do you know where the term clinical depression came from?
No, go for it.
Okay. So it wasn't devised by the medical profession. It was devised by the insurance profession in the States to give people a criteria for who got paid, who could get their medical conditions paid for and who couldn't. So they came up, it started off with a list of 8 things, I think, 8 criteria. It went to 10. I think it's now at 12. And they called it clinical depression. And if you match those criteria, then the insurance companies would pay for your treatment. If you didn't match them, then they wouldn't. So you were either clinically depressed or you weren't. That's where the term clinical depression comes from. And it's now used all over the world by the medical profession, but that is where the term comes from. So I hate the fact that a term was devised by insurance companies so that they can decide whether to pay out for somebody's treatment or not. That I really hate it. And if you read the criteria, go on and Google it, you can find it. If you read the criteria, it basically means that you've suffered at a certain level for a certain period of time. That's what it is. That's what clinical depression is.
And if you've suffered with something for such a long time, you're going to start believing that hype of this is what I've got for the rest of my life. No.
Absolutely, of course you are.
Oh,
yeah, and it's not
heartbreaking.
True. It is. That's exactly the word I'd use for it. Absolutely heartbreaking. The fact that people don't know that they don't have to suffer with this stuff, that they can start on the road to recovery with the right help is absolutely heartbreaking. So we've got a few minutes left and we've got something to say at the end, which I'm sure you're going to read out again. But before we do that, I want to make sure people know who Cuddy Cudworth is, what Monkey Mind Relaxation is. So tell us all about it.
Absolutely. So the label I've created for myself is the UK's leading mind management coach. And I embody that label and it drives me and moves me forward as the UK's leading mind management coach. And I help and support people get past their anxiety, depression, stress, and overwhelm. And that constant overwhelm that comes from our overthinking. You can do that from a very simple course that I have got available in my Facebook group, Monkey Mind Relaxation. Change your thoughts, change your life, or you can get in contact and we can work one-on-one to get you moving forward as quickly as possible. Many different packages available. Absolutely. What about yourself, Graham?
Do you know, I want to talk about the thing that you and I are doing together. So while Cuddy runs Monkey Mind Relaxation, I run the Priority Academy. Together, we are creating the Priority Mind Management. And that is specifically about us helping businesses to help their employees.
Correct.
The staff retention levels, the mental health levels in businesses these days are horrific. I think it was 40% of the people who left their job last year was due to work stress. 40%. Imagine what your staff retention could be. So if you are a business owner or a HR manager, MD, CEO, whatever, and you want to take care of your staff or your employees' mental and emotional health, please get in touch with Cuddy or myself because we are there to help you in any way, shape, or form we can, whether it be with an online course, an online program that they can, their self-help program, or with one-on-one coaching. We are there to help you. So please get in touch with us. And now with 90 seconds to go, you have something left to read out on behalf of our host station, Men Radio Station.
Absolutely. Honestly, the meaning of life has been brought to you by Men's Radio Station and Women's Radio Station as well. Like and subscribe on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, and tune in live. There is so many more radio channels here at Men's Radio Station as well, of which you should check out. I've watched a few of them and they're very, very good. Reading Between the Lines is a phenomenal one. So get in contact. The radio station that we work at, we're all very proud employees, if you like, and hosts because we love what we do. So check them out.
Yeah, and make sure to go onto their YouTube channel as well and hit the subscribe and the like button. You can watch all of our previous shows on their YouTube channel as well. So go and do that. And it really does help the station out when you subscribe and you like and you comment and all that sort of stuff. It really does help the station out. So please go and do that. Men's Radio Station. There is a women's radio station as well. So go and hunt them out as well. and there's some, just as Cuddy says, there's just some incredible shows on there. So we've got 10 seconds left, folks. Thank you very much for watching. We really hope that we've offered you some thoughts and some help today. Cuddy, the last words are from you.
Coming on at 6 p.m. is the ABC of CBD.
Bye, folks.
Bye.